Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to another episode of #TalkAboutIt. We're just a bunch of young adults navigating our way through life and on the same journey as you. So welcome. If you haven't seen our first episode, I highly encourage you to check it out. We had a really good conversation on just what it is to have a relationship with God and do you really know God? So check it out. And today I think we have something very interesting in store. Yes. As I'm sure you have seen by now, whether it have been on TikTok or Instagram, this new song called WAP. And to say the least, it is
taken over.
It is very interesting. And if you're watching the video, I have some questions for you because we were going to watch it and react to it because I have never seen it. But we can't even do that because it's so bad.
So bad.
But on a serious note, this song has quite literally came to this world and taken over.
Yeah.
And it is not the best lyrically, visually, to say the least.
I would say so. I think right before this I looked at the charts on even just Apple Music, and there it is, still at number 1.
Wow.
And for me, it's like that just like hurts on like a spiritual level, because, and I don't know if we're just diving in right now.
Let's dive in.
But to me, like, music is so important because it's like the language that we worship God with, you know? And to know that the enemy's just trying to dominate the worship or the music scene, which I feel like he is, it's sad because the anthem of every young person right now is a song that we literally can't even
say one word about.
Yeah. And I think that it's just, you know, when we would go to school and we'd, you know, say the Pledge of Allegiance, it's almost like this is the pledge of a generation. And it's so normal. I mean, I wasn't alive back then, but I know this wouldn't slide back then. But have you guys felt that, like, as time goes on, things that would be like no way that's even acceptable are now almost being praised?
Yeah.
Have you guys seen that at all?
I mean, it's so normalized. I haven't seen the official video of this, and like I think it would be good to establish, like, this isn't, we're not sitting here to bash Cardi B or this video. I think we're just using this as a reference of just how you said it hurts. Like, like we feel the spiritual weight of it. Yeah. And just to see, like, if you go on TikTok, the hashtags are trending of people mimicking this dance, or whatever it is. I've only seen like Ari just sent a video of it, like this, like Mr. Clean guy reenacting
a
it,
funny
like,
one, like
a funny one, not like a sexualized version of it, but it's like people, like teenage girls are reenacting this video, and just like you said, to you, like that's normalizing it. That's normalizing the act of these moves. I don't even.
But even so, just like how you're saying, like, it was a funny video, it's lighthearted, there's like nothing wrong with it, but still the words are in the background, and it's still making this song play over and over, and kids are watching it and they're hearing this and they're repeating it, and it's like, you know, it's so normal. You know, that's the weird thing about it.
Like kind of what you said, it's not like Cardi B came in and changed the whole game of now all of a sudden the world is corrupt. Obviously this has been built up, and this has been the culture. I mean, before TikTok, in my opinion, was still very toxic, very bad for young girls to be dancing to these songs, and even the dance motions they do, and, you know, kind of what we're saying, it's just normalizing it. But it does, to me, this painted such a clear picture of where we are at, how this song, it's so explicit and so bad, and it's the number 1 in the whole world, and it's everywhere, it's taking over. And I had posted something about it, just saying, you know, how bad it is, and I had a lot of friends comment just saying, like, well, it's just sad how everyone's attacking Cardi B when male rappers have been doing this their whole life, and all of a sudden it's a big deal. And I understand, like, it's never okay to sexualize things. It's in our commercials, it's in our music, it's everywhere, just models, people that we look up to, it's how they dress. It's been everywhere, right? It's not just like this one-time deal. And I'm not saying we're not bashing Cardi B for doing this all of a sudden when it's been happening. But I do think also it is different, and this is kind of something I wanted to talk about, is I think it is different between male rappers doing it, but also Cardi B and Kylie Jenner, really well-known women, where me and Paloma can say as women, we look up to women to see how we want to be, right? So idolized figures in society that are famous, that women are constantly looking up to. Kylie Jenner is so successful. She's so famous. She's like, the number one millionaire, youngest millionaire or something, billionaire in the world. Like, these are famous people that little girls are looking up to. So when they see them dressing like this, when they see their own gender sexualizing themselves, it makes it seem like it's okay to do that, right? So I just feel like it's almost gone to a whole nother level, a whole nother intensity, to where what we're just saying, it's been so normalized. And I think the point of why we wanted to talk about this is to bring back that perspective of how God sees it and how sacred this topic really is, and why it is so bad for this to be normalized.
Yeah, and I think, because I feel like this video is going to get a lot of reaction from maybe people who don't see the world in maybe a lens that we do. I think the last thing that we would want to come across is, these 4 people who are just like overcritical and, bashing on this. The only reason we're talking about this song is because it's like the latest trend. But yeah, I mean, male rappers have been talking about horrible things for so many years, and it's like,
dude, you go listen to that album. What's his name? Gunna.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm sure some of you guys know, but that's music is just as bad. It has a lot of cuss words. Yeah. It might not be as sexualized as WAP.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's just as bad.
Yeah. So I think we're just trying to address this topic as a whole. Like, this isn't going to be a rant on how Cardi B is horrible or something, because God bless her. Yeah. She's in an industry where if you get a reaction out of someone, you're number one. And for some reason, sex sells. And I think like never before, companies are profiting off of sexualizing things, especially the music industry, especially even just TikTok. Like I thought Instagram was a little crazy, when it came out and over the years, but now it's like this new app comes out, and I feel like it appeases to even a younger generation, and it's like so much even worse than what we had. I just wanted to read this, and just to be mindful of what the word says. It says, but if any one of you looks at a woman with lustful intent, you've already committed adultery with her in your heart. And I feel like that you can replace that with a girl to a guy as well. And it's like, does anybody even care about that anymore? When the word specifically says, when Jesus takes it a notch further, and he says, even if you look and plant that seed in your mind towards a woman, you're doing adultery in your heart.
Right.
And it's like, okay, whatever. Like, so what? But in the word, it's like the biggest thing.
Right. It's serious.
And you can't even go through TikTok without seeing overly sexualized things. Yeah. And it's like, there's a problem here. Yeah. And why is nobody talking about it? Are we being so too sensitive to offend the politically correct thing to say, because people are going to say, well, you're bashing people who are just confident in themselves, or like slut shaming or something like that. And to me, it's like, well, I'm a Christian.
This is what we believe.
And I'm not going to go around just like hating on people, but I think this is a call for people to wake up and be a little bit more strict with what we're allowing ourselves to listen to and see day in and day out. Do you guys catch yourselves maybe being so numb to things that you're like, wait, why am I watching this?
Yeah.
Why am I listening to this? Do you have that little feeling inside?
I think that happens a lot too with movies too. because we love movies. We love watching movies.
I think you guys watch movies like every night. Honestly,
every day. Yeah,
their family loves
And-
Minimum one a day.
minimum one a day.
And I think, you know, like, you can use the excuse and say like, oh, it's art. Like, of course it's art, but whatever. But it's still, you know, like what we're saying, there's still things that we shouldn't be watching in these movies. There's still content that we shouldn't be consuming, that we shouldn't be putting into ourselves, you know? And then I think it's just really easy for people to be like, or for Christians to be like, oh, that doesn't affect me, like,
To
because
justify it.
yeah, to justify it and be like, oh, that doesn't affect me because I pray, or like, oh, that doesn't affect me because God knows my heart, or like, you know,
I trust myself so much
Yeah,
that I can
exactly.
watch this and be okay with it.
and I think that's something that I've seen in Christian life a lot, to where it's like, wait a minute, like, but what about God's word? Like, what about what we're learning on Sunday? What about what we're teaching on Sunday mornings? Because some of us are on stage and some of us are, you know, teaching in youth and teaching to our generation. So it's like, are we going to hold that same standard to ourselves, or are we going to be, you know, prideful in that and say like, oh, I can handle myself, you know?
Yeah. But the word says to guard your heart,
Yeah.
not get yourself to a place where your heart is so strong that you can surround yourself with horrible things.
Exactly.
It says guard your heart.
Yeah.
When's the last time you're in a movie theater and a bad scene comes on and you literally like close your eyes?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember growing up like doing that, and sometimes I would feel kind of embarrassed because like it's a group of guys that you would never expect to be Christians, and like, you know, having to close our eyes, but that still needs to be a thing.
Yeah.
And I think that whoever's watching, this is more of just a conversation to maybe, how can we all look within ourselves?
Totally, yeah.
How can we not be so numb and so gray to these things? I remember as a kid, I feel like God always puts this innocence in us as kids. Yeah. And there would be times where it was like this radar would go off of like, oh, I can't watch this, because you just get this weird feeling inside of you. Like, I feel so, I shouldn't be doing this. It's a conviction. Yeah. And I feel like the older that I got and the more that I wouldn't listen to that conviction, that little voice can actually go away. Yeah. And I feel like that's the scariest place to be in as a Christian, when that little voice inside of you tells you, hey, I don't feel right listening to this or watching this. This makes me uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. That's when you know that you maybe have to readjust some things in your life. Yeah. And how would you guys say is the best way to get back to that place of, hey, I can't be listening to this. This isn't okay. This isn't what I stand for or what I believe in. Yeah. Or, hey, I can't be watching this. Like, what are some things that you guys could share for people and for even us in the room to get us back to that sensitivity in the spirit?
Pastor just released a devotion yesterday about this. It was spirit or flesh. And I think it's so counterintuitive to sit here and be in the mindset of, oh, like, I'm good with God, I can listen to Drake's new album, because I've been in that place. Drake just released his recent album, and it's fire. Like, I will sit here and say it's fire, but I can be half a song in and I'm like, I have that conviction of like, why am I listening to this? Because whether you realize it in that moment or not, you're inviting something into your life that does not want to see you grow with God. And whether you see that in a rapid sense, like before you get home, or a year into your marriage, like it's going to affect you in a way that you aren't aware of. Like, I'm not aware of inviting that in. So it's like a practical thing is being in the spirit. Like, it's something that we have to pursue, or else we're going to pursuing the flesh, because Pastor laid it out very clear. It's this decision or it's this decision.
Right.
It's the decision to pray and to seek God and to not listen to those things, or you're going to choose Drake. It's either like choose God or choose Drake. Like, it comes down to that. It's like, it's so simple. And for me, I didn't grow up in church. I didn't grow up in the Spirit. Like, I didn't know any of these things till I came here. And for me, when I got to that point of feeling that when watching or listening to something, it's like, what is that? And when you listen to that, you see the fruit of it, and it's like, wow, that 15-minute drive I spent with God was like the best thing ever. Like, instead of bumping that new song where you're like, yeah, and then you get home and you're like, why am I like just feeling like, you know? And for me, that was a big part of it, because when I'm angry or like when I'm just not in a good mood, I want something to like bump and feel good. But in all reality, it's so counterproductive to what you really need. So for me, it's just a simple decision, spirit or flesh, just like Pastor said yesterday.
And I think there's one thing that our pastor says often, and I love it. He just says, I mean, it's common sense within the Bible, but every single choice you make, it's either feeding what you're saying, your flesh or your spirit. And in the Bible, it says the little foxes. And we know this as Christians, but even if you're not a Christian or whatever, I'm sure you see it. It's not ever something that all of a sudden just happens.
Yeah, it's a little thing.
It's these thoughts that first come in and creep in your mind, and then it's maybe, and that I think that's what that verse says that Talon shared was, even when you think about it, it's not like we actually did something, right? But it says it's as if you did, because you're allowing it a spot in your mind, and then that evolves into doing it, or you know, whatever the steps is into letting it first become a thought. And I guess the right word would be, you know, what is the right word? You're just allowing it. You're entertaining it. When you start entertaining those thoughts, when you start, like we said, like stopped thinking and letting that Holy Spirit conscience speak to us. Every single time we choose the flesh over the spirit, we're searing our conscience, and it goes to a point where you don't even hear that voice anymore. So I think practically just going back to every little thing, just turning it off and choosing it. It starts small. I think you start with the small things, like you said, choosing a worship song instead of choosing a song that's planting thoughts inside your mind. Or even in depression, you know, like if you're depressed and you go listen to a depressing song, what's that doing for your depression? It's doing nothing good. So it's the exact same thing. If you're struggling with watching pornography, if you're struggling with being in a really bad relationship, and you know you shouldn't be sleeping outside of marriage, but then you're constantly talking about it with them, or you're constantly listening to stuff that involves it, and you're constantly appetizing that, you're gonna give into temptation. But the stronger that you're anchored into the Lord, the stronger you are to deny that. And this is actually a conversation we had recently, but the whole thing about temptation is always going to come, but if you're strong in the Lord, you can overcome it. And it goes straight back to our last podcast, like, do you really know God? Because if you know God, your appetite for that will slowly, and it's a journey, and it takes work, and you need to press into the Lord, but that's the only way that you're not going to succumb to the temptation.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the fear of God.
Yeah.
And I want to get to a place in my walk with God where I'm so hesitant to do anything that would hurt his heart. Because and this is so silly talking about this, because I'm instantly going back to the days where it would be an older woman who's saying, why are you listening to that music? And, you know, you should only be listening to Air One, and just being so annoyed, like, you know, let me live. And it's not a big deal, you know, it's like I'm hearing it, but I'm not acting on it. But I think that the day and age that we're in now, more than ever, there needs to be a talk within the young adult community about taking a stand for things that matter to God. It may not matter to the world, but it says that we're not of this world, and that the world will hate. Jesus literally said, the world will hate you. And we're seeing now more than ever, people who are even standing up for Christ are being hated on, crucified. And I think this verse is perfect for everything we're talking about. It's in Ephesians 5 verses 1, and I'll just read it until I stop. But it says this: therefore be imitators of God as beloved children, and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, a fragrant offering and a sacrifice to God. Now, this is where it gets good. But sexual immorality and all impurity or covetousness must not even be named among you, as is proper among saints. Let there be no filthiness, nor foolish talk, nor crude joking, which are out of place, but instead let there be thanksgiving. Yeah. For you may be sure of this, that everyone who is sexually immoral or impure, or who is covetous, that is, an idolater, has no inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. Wow. That's so scary.
Yeah, it's serious.
That is something that we should all be reading every single day of our lives. Because remember, you were talking to me about like sexual sin and how it's different than all the other sins. God literally says that. Lying is a sin, sure, but he says that sexual sin, it affects like the inside of you. Yeah. And it is my firm belief that the devil's one tactic on America is not only to strip families away, because I think that's a big one, but it's to desensitize the youth to be so open to anything sexual, because I think that the devil knows this verse so well, so he's going to do everything to make us do everything that this verse says. Yeah. And I just like, if there's like guys, or I don't want to speak for girls, so maybe one of you can speak for like young girls that are on an app or on TikTok or whatever, and are sexualizing themselves. Like, what would you guys say to them to bring them back to purity and virtue? Because I know both of you guys are very virtuous people. You know, if you pull up their TikToks, they're not there's nothing on there. And maybe Dylan and you and I can talk to some boys about or some guys about how to not feed into that. But what would you girls say about that? How do we value ourselves when the world is telling you that sexualizing yourself is the new way of valuing yourself?
Yeah, I think it all just goes back to your identity and who you know, and if you know who you are, you know. It's easy to try to find validation and value and, you know, praise through all these different avenues when you don't have a foundation in God, and when you don't know what the Bible says about you, and when you don't know what God says about you, how he thinks about you, you know?
Yeah, I would say there was a point in my life where I did get value from how many guys liked me, honestly. I just thought the more guys that liked me, the more important I was, the more popular I was,
the more wanted you
I
feel.
was.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel good. It does. When people pursue you and people want to be around you and you get invited to every party and you're just that person that everybody wants to be friends with, it makes you feel good. But I realized there's so much more value in living a life beyond yourself, and the love you would receive, the attention, the desire that you felt is like literally maybe 1% of what you feel when it's true love. And I remember I was talking to, just to put myself on blast, I was talking to a lot of guys at one point. And I'm not going to say a number, but I was talking to a lot of guys at one point. And I came back and I met Talon, and he put this in my phone. He said, purity is what sets you apart. And it just clicked in me, like, what I'm chasing after and what I want people to be chasing after me is like nothing compared to actual love. And so I guess I would just encourage women, whatever you feel, that desire, that want, it's literally nothing compared to what God has for you. And literally what the world can offer can't even compare to what God can offer. And so I would just encourage you. I know it feels good. I know maybe that's where your identity is right now. But if you just are willing to step outside of that and pursue what God has for you, I I guarantee it's way more, you get way more satisfaction from it. Yeah. And not only that, but I also wanted to add on to it is, now I feel like God has used my life to speak to other young women. And I think that's where God wants us. It's not just a life for us and what makes us feel good, but it's when you get to a spot where your life can speak to others. And there's this verse in 1 Timothy, and it's if you ever took a purity class, which I'm not sure a lot of people have, but I have, okay? And they give you a ring, and on the ring, it's 1 Timothy 4:12. It's known as the verse of purity, and it just says, it's actually pretty applicable to young adults, because it says, let no one despise you of your youth, but be an example to the believers in word and conduct, in love and spirit and faith and purity. And that's a really well-known verse, and it's great. But what I want to go is a few verses down. It says, meditate on these things, give yourself entirely to them, that your progress may be evident to all. And I know, and I just want to kind of talk about what we're talking about right now is purity, but I feel like we should be so set apart as believers from the world, where it's so evident that we live different. And even last night we had a prayer night, and a woman came up to me and just was saying how it meant so much to her, my life to her daughter, because her daughter looks up to me and Talon's relationship and says she wants something like that, and how she just really is so thankful that I have stayed where I am and how I live because it speaks to her daughter. And I think those moments is what matters and what makes a difference. And I think that's one of our downfalls. Sorry, I'm talking so long, but I think that's one of our downfalls of our generation is we don't look different from the world. Us Christians, we make TikToks that the world makes TikToks about, and we listen to the same music, and we try to, it's almost became we're trying to be a hand to the society that we're trying to help by being the same way as them. I think there's a wave of just trying to be like them and be friends with them and be similar with them and connect with them, but it came to a point where we're not different. And it's not evident in what we believe and what we stand for. And I think that's what we're trying to do right now is make it evident. This is what we believe. It's not okay to listen to this stuff. It's not okay to give into temptation. And we know we're humans and we know we have flesh, but we can overcome it. And sorry, I kind of went on a rant, but I guess what I would say is the little foxes, be careful of those little foxes. What the world offers is nothing compared to what God offers. And when you get to a spot in life where it's not for you and it's not for what you feel, and it's more about what you can offer other people and living a life for them, I think that's the greatest fulfillment.
Yeah. Hey, I think I think that's applicable to girls and to guys, because it's all the same route. Like it's all the same route for guys chasing girls and girls chasing guys. And I think we can all sit here and say we all have the conviction that we want all of you guys sitting on that camera to win. Yeah. We're not sitting here in the sense of that we have it figured out. Like I could probably say for the both of us that in the center of our relationships that purity is the number one thing, that we don't even dabble in any of that kind of stuff because we know the outcome of it. So we're not sitting here from a place of we're perfect, do what we do. Like we want you to win. Like this is out of a conviction from us. And as guys, we have to get over our pride of not being in the coolest conversation about the coolest things and saying those things and participating in those things because it's pride. We want to be cool. We want to be relevant. We want to be funny. We want to be that person. And our time is running short, but we're here to see you win, and that's the purpose of this. We want you to be so on fire for God and to be winning in your relationships and your relationship with God. And it's a conviction that we have to set that standard for young adults and to bring that relevance and that reverence of God, that fear of God, just like Talon was saying, because we need you. We need a people to rise up that aren't okay with this. And like we started off, this isn't a bash of Cardi B. No. This is just bringing it back to unnormalizing it because it's what we need. Yeah,
putting the sacredness back.
So
I still have some things to say. It's been such a great conversation.
So good.
We try to keep it very short, but it's like, wow, there's so much to talk about. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about kind of encouraging people that you can still stand for something and be accepted by people that aren't Christians. And I think that people actually admire someone who stands for something and has convictions, because the world that we live in, nobody has any convictions, and the secular point of view is there everything goes.
Yeah.
So I think that just starting in your own life, maybe it's like not, if all of your friends say bad words, maybe it's you not saying bad words. I remember I did that in like middle school, and people who are my friends are like, hey, like, you don't say bad words, huh? I was like, yeah, I just don't. And that like spoke to them. Whether they changed or not, like, that's not on me, but maybe in your life, like, have something that you right now can stand for.
That's good.
Because the verse that I read, it says to be imitators of God.
Yeah.
So it's like, would God do this? No. And I think that will bring back the sensitivity of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
To where, I mean, I even remember just being at like not parties, but like, because I don't think I've ever been to like a party, but even just group gatherings, and like people that I know would all just start dancing to horrible music. And it just, I feel like I'm the old grandpa there who's saying like stop, but I think that's something that's within me, that Christians that I know are dancing to this guy rapping about the most sexual things. And it's like, God, I don't think that makes God feel good. And it kind of put this analogy in my head of like, are we as Christians dancing to the tune of the world? And every time that we choose to engage in this, the world is playing us a song and we're dancing around like fools. And I only want to dance for God. I only want to dance for the things that he wants for my life and that he wants for us. And just bringing back the sacredness of music, I think that we can all work on that. And even us as friends, like, hey, let's not be super, over this and that and that and that. Like, God will convict our hearts, but is there going to be things in the next whatever month that we're going to have to be like, hey, I'm going to take this talk seriously, and I'm going to stop doing this or stop doing that? Because I think that it starts with us, and I just would encourage everybody that's listening to be sensitive again. And I think that if you just pray that, God will make you sensitive.
Totally.
Some of us have grown up and we're so hard because we had to be hard. We had to be tough. But I pray that God would restore that sensitivity back into our hearts. The Hillsong song that was throwback to a long time ago, but it says, break my heart for what breaks yours. That's not just in like an injustice type of thing or, poverty thing. It's like, God,
give me your heart.
Yeah, if I'm doing something to hurt your heart, let that hurt my heart too. Because purity matters. And you're going to be going against the grain, because the number one song right now is glorifying a part of a woman's body and sexual things. And I just know that it's only going to get worse from here. That's like, I think that's the start. Everyone is trying to normalize pedophilia. Everyone is trying to normalize sex when it's like the most sacred thing to God. And I know that if little communities like this just stay pure and stay fearing God and what his heart wants, I feel like we can make some change. And especially in your life, if you're in a relationship or just in general. It's going to make your life so much better. Does anybody have anything else to say?
I just want to close out with, I want to hit back on a thing that I was talking about earlier. And it's in 1 Corinthians 5:6, and it says, do you not know that a little leaven leavens the whole lump? And it's practically talking about bread. Like, a little leaven, like, it spoils the whole thing. And I wrote this in my Bible a long time ago. It says, a little sin affects everything, not just what that sin entails. And I was just watching this sermon before, just talking about purity, and it was so good. And where my mind goes with a lot of this stuff is, like I was saying before, like it affects a lot more than just in the moment, you know. And even just thinking like, as like you and I are creatives, like we can sit down and come up with the most insane ideas, but a little bit of leaven's that whole lump, you know. So it's like if I'm listening to watching whatever that's not glorifying God, I'm not going to be able to walk out my calling in the most effective way.
Right.
Like everything, like that's just where my mind goes with it, because it's like I'm not going to have the purest, coolest God-breathed ideas if I'm listening to the complete opposite of what he is. Because for me, I can physically see that in my life, is like when I'm so wired in, I'm focused on God, like not worrying about the world, my mind is just like full of these crazy ideas, you know. But it's like as soon as you step out of that, it's like you're looking like a blank white wall, like I'm just gonna paint a stick figure, like literally. And for me, that's just one of the practical ways in my life of just like how it affects it.
No, it's so
and
good.
and it's different for everyone. Like if you have sex, it's gonna affect you in a way that you don't imagine it's going to affect you. And if you're gonna do X, you're gonna suffer with Y. Like it's gonna be exposed. God is gonna expose you. He's gonna fix you. God is in that business. Like he's not in the business of it's okay, bud. And like it's okay. It's hidden. Like no, like God is in the business of breaking down, building up, and bringing light to it, because that's who he is. And for me, that's just one of the practical ways of like I feel like as young adults, we're so confused in our callings, and like having this anxiousness of like, but that person's doing this and this doing that. And it's like, it all derives down from like this sense of purity of like, if you're living in this, you're going to live so fulfilled in your calling, and God is going to bring you to a whatever the plan is for your life, because that's what he lays out in his word. And I just feel like we make that so hard and so confusing, of like this anxiousness of like, I don't have the K in my followers, like I'm nothing, like having this anxiousness, because it all derives from that root, the root that we're talking about, and the root that has been this whole conversation, even the last one, you know. For me, that's just where my mind goes always, of the byproduct of it, because like in the moment, it's in the moment, but what comes after it is, for me, it's like really makes you think about it.
Yeah. And just this thought of, if you don't stand for anything, you're going to bow to everything. And that's imagery that was used back in the Bible, because idols were things that you would bow to and submit to. And now idols are things that aren't necessarily like physical idols that you have in your house, but it's anything that comes before God. So just think about that. I'm a Christian. I'm called to stand for him and bow to nothing else. And watch your life just affect a lot of people when you do that, you know.
So good, babe.
Like I felt the presence of God in this room. I don't know about you guys, but our prayer is that this brings a different perspective to your life, that makes you go in the opposite direction of the way you're going, because like I said, we want you to win, and we want to attack this topic that no one wants to talk about as young adults. And Cardi B, if you happen to see this, we love you. We're not bashing you. We invite you. We love you. Even if you listen to the song, we love you. But thank you so much.
Tattoo jam. well, a little quick. I was at the press, and this little, I don't know if she was older, but this car drives by, and this song is like blazing as loud as I can. I was like, oh, that's her jam. Like she's getting down to that. But yeah, hopefully you guys can find some music that glorifies God. Maybe ISOY or something.
Sick plug. But we love you guys. We're honored to have you joining in. I think some just exciting stuff. We're gonna have some merch coming out. Be on the lookout. It's for the Way merch official. It's gonna be sick. We're so excited. We're praying for you. In Jesus' name, we rebuke any demonic attacks in your life. God is with you. He's for you, and we love you so much. Join us Sunday live and in person at 10 a.m. Pastor Matthew Pollock is going to be preaching a message that is absolutely fire every single week. It's fresh. So you don't want to miss it. Seriously. I know we say that a lot, but you don't want to miss it. So we love you so much.
Bye, guys.
See ya.